Efforts are continuing to reach 3 miners who are still trapped underground at the Sibanye-Stillwater's Masakhane mine in Johannesburg West. 13 miners were initially trapped after an earthquake caused a cave-in yesterday. 4 miners have died and 6 are in hospital. We're joined now by mining analyst Peter Major from our Cape Town studio. Thanks so much for your time, sir. We appreciate it. Another mine, another disaster. This obviously raises questions about mining safety.
Well, yeah, that's the place you start, mining safety. But let's look at the environment we're working in. These are huge, enormous mines that are nearing the end of their life. They've had very little capital put into them in the last 10 years. And these mines were created, you call it, there's an optimum size and optimum number of people. Now, our mining industry, our gold mine industry has shrunken 75–80%. So a lot of the mining we're doing now is in old mines that are remnants. They're enormous, and you've got much smaller crews spread out all over the place. So we do have a lot less inspectors. We have a lot less money. We're trying to mine what's left. We're not mining new areas that are fresher, probably more stable. And then you have to say seismicity. Is this a flat-out earthquake, or is it a small tremor that triggered, say, bad ground in an old existing place? Yeah, it's a safety issue, but we got to define who's at fault here, how did it happen, could it have been prevented, was it an act of God, are there signs that this was going to happen? Lots of questions need to be answered.
So whether it's an old mine or not, there's still no excuse for poor safety measures, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's never an excuse for poor safety measures, but was this poor safety that resulted in this accident? Like I said, is a tornado poor safety if a hurricane slams into a city and a few people die? You know, if they were in a building that was condemned and it falls down, then yeah, poor safety had a lot more to do with it than the hurricane. So it needs a proper investigation, and that's what the government's doing, that's what the company's doing, and you can bet that's what the unions are doing, a proper investigation.
The reason I ask is because Sibanye-Stillwater isn't making headlines for the first time today. In March this year, a miner died at another mine owned by the same company.
Look, again, you got to keep perspective on this. Going underground thousands of meters is risky, but it's not as risky as going to work in a taxi. Sibanye loses many more men coming to work every day than they do working underground. We lose more policemen every year than all our mining industry put together. I think even people getting circumcised illegally die in numbers larger than mining. So let's keep perspective. We're putting 120, 110,000 men underground every day. The numbers are actually very small, and they're usually at world-class standards with the top countries in the world.
So what does government do in instances like this? I mean, you get mining unions saying that they need proper regulation in place, they need proper measures for companies that don't take these steps that are required. Is that going to be enough, or do we continue to see this as an accident that can be accepted because of the low number of deaths?
Yes, your last comment was pretty correct. Adding 2,000 regulations to our mining industry in the last 12 years, has that really made things safer, or has it made it more impossible to run a mine? And government is here to work with the mining companies. Government received much more dividends, much more profits than the shareholders ever received in the last 120 years. So it's in government's interest to see that it's a strong, safe industry. We can't have combative teams from government and unions thinking they're fighting the mining companies. All three are in this together. If all three work together, we can grow the industry, make it safer, make it long living. And if we fight each other, it's going to continue to shrink like we've seen. But safety is never compromised. In my 40-some years underground, I've never seen anybody ever in management ask anyone to do something that was risky, to do something that they would not do themselves. So that's not an urban legend, that's a lie that mining companies don't care about safety.
You know, of course they do, but I mean, the question is whether or not they're doing enough, especially since it's a multi-billion rand industry. I know it's dwindling, but they still do make a lot of money to deal with issues like this.
The gold industry has had losses, I think, now for 6 of the last 7 years. You can't find an investor in the world that can, with a clear conscience, put money into an industry that loses money 6 out of 7 years. And government knows that because they virtually have received no taxes the last 6, 7 years either. So money on safety, that's usually at the top of the budget. How much do you spend? Nobody knows the answer to that. You know, if one man dies, you can always say enough wasn't spent. But do you spend 50% of your revenue on safety? Do you spend 5%? Do you spend 1%? I don't know if anybody can make that calculation. It's how the money is spent. That's what's important. How is that money utilized that's allocated to safety?
Okay, thank you so much for your insight. Appreciate it. That was mining analyst Peter Major.